your paper on research methodology, isn't it? Research methodology. What is
Yes.
research? What do you mean by research?
Ma'am, research refers to activities that is to investigate something or to innovate something, um, uh, to search again and again.
Okay.
It basically
So
means to search and
yes, you are right. So research is a process through which new knowledge is generated or new knowledge is discovered. Okay. So through research, we get new knowledge. We obtain new knowledge. Um, Korlinger, one famous statistician, he defines research as a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of hypothetical propositions about the presumed relationships about various phenomena. Okay, this is a very long definition, but simply saying research is to search for facts, answers to research questions, and solution for problems. So research, when we begin research, we have a question in our mind. So we begin research with a question, that is a research question, and we want to get the answer to it to solve this problem. That is research. Okay, so objectives of a good research is to gain familiarity with a phenomenon or to achieve new insight into it. So, when we may say there are exploratory research, we do not know about do not know much about the phenomena. So, we do research in order to know more, to get new insight into it. Another objective can be to portray the characteristics of a particular individual, situation, or group. We have survey type of research. We want to know the view of the subjects, that is descriptive studies are there. Then another objective can be to determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which it is associated with something else. We have clinical research, diagnostic research studies. So we want to associate different phenomena. Then the last but not the least, to the objective is to test a hypothesis of a causal relationship between variables. Okay, so we want to establish causal relationship between variables. We want to explain a phenomenon. What are the qualities of a good research? Good research is systematic. Systematic means it is structured according to some set of rules. We follow these steps. Certain prescribed steps are there, and we follow those steps. That is systematic. Good research is empirical. Empirical means it is based on first-hand evidence gathered from information from real life experiences or observations. So, a good research is based on evidences.
ma'am,
So,
what
it,
was the first one?
First one is it is a systematic.
Okay,
A set
ma'am.
of steps are followed. The definite steps are some definite steps are there, and we progress step by step.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Then a good research is verifiable. So research involves precise observation and accurate description so that others can verify it. We ourselves can verify it whether our findings are correct or not, and others can also verify it. It is verifiable. It is logical. Our conclusions are based on reasoning, and the process we follow are based on the logical process of deduction and induction. Deduction, you know, deduction, process of deduction.
Yes,
From
ma'am.
a general rule, you conclude about the specific case. You infer about the specific case. So deduction is general to specific, and induction is just the opposite. From specific cases, you form generalizations. Okay? So our research involves both deductive processes as well as inductive processes. So it is logical. And good research aims at developing theories and principles. So research findings help us to develop theories and principles. What are theories? What is a theory? Any idea? A theory is a set of principles which can explain a phenomenon as well as predict the phenomenon. Okay, so with the help of a theory, we can describe, explain, and predict a phenomenon. Okay, it is a set of statements, state of assumptions, a state of principles, and research is replicable. Others can do it again.
Theories are excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Theories are like closed ended, means there is no further development in the theory,
No,
but
no,
in
no.
case of research,
It's not that. Theory can be modified.
okay, uh, then how we can differentiate it from research? Research is searching something new on a old aspect or something which is already available.
No, research nahi, we have also exploratory research. Always we don't research on the knowledge which are already applicable. There are also exploratory research. Okay, but theories are there. We do research whether the theory is correct or it doesn't hold good, so that we can modify it. Theories are modified. If theories were not modified, we cannot modify a theory, we cannot change a theory. How knowledge can progress?
No, ma'am, it cannot be progress. Then we cannot do anything in that field.
Hmm? Hmm? Please repeat your question.
If, no, no, I'm not questioning, ma'am. I just affirmed what you said.
Okay, okay. Please repeat. What are you saying? What you are saying?
I'm saying if we don't have the scope for further research, we cannot go or develop further in that specific field.
Yes, you are right. So to go further in a specific field, we have to do research. Okay, you are right.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry to interrupt, ma'am. But ma'am, basically, theory is a set of statements about a certain complex phenomenon.
Yes,
Whereas in research, we have to write an hypothesis and then we have to conclude about it. Research basically is with hypothesis is basically a prior prediction of a conclusion that this may happen or this may not happen. That
yes,
happens in a research, whereas a theory is a set of statements, and we may modify it with time, but generally we try to prove our research on behalf of a theory. Theory is a
yes.
broader aspect, while research is a basic as it's an assumption from the theory.
Okay, yes, you are right. Theory is a broader thing. But while doing research, we have to be specific. When we formulate a hypothesis, it is very specific. It is regarding the relationship between variables. Theory is at a broader level. It is at the level of concept. Okay. So when we try to study a concept, we have to be specific. We have to operationalize it. Okay. So we have theories of personality. Okay, personality is a very big concept, but the theories of intelligence. But when we are trying to do research on it, we try to study it, we have to first define what is intelligence, what is personality. So we have to operationalize intelligence, okay, in order to study it. What actually operationalize it? How can we know that somebody is intelligent? Because we cannot observe intelligence. We cannot observe anxiety. Can we? We have to operationalize it. This is construct. Researcher's construction in his or her mind. It is a construct. When it is a study, it is a construct. And coming to the level of hypothesis, we become more specific. We come to variables. Okay? That's why I told you research is based on logic. It follows both deductive logic as well as inductive logic. Very soon I am going to explain it to you. So, excuse me. First, I am going to explain you what is variables. What is a variable? We know you know a concept. Do
Anything
you
that
know?
varies is a variable.
Yes,
Anything that varies is a variable.
you are absolutely right. Anything that can have different values is a variable. Okay. Then what is value? Anything that can have different value. Anything that varies in terms of its values is a variable. What is a value?
It is a constant term that does not changes.
No. If it is constant, how can it vary?
Variable. Okay.
So value can be a name, a category, or a number. Okay. And another concept is a score. Score is your value on the variable is the score. Okay. Let me explain you. Suppose the gender. Okay. Gender can be male, female, or third gender, anything, LGBTQ, anything. So, gender can gender has different values. That means it has different categories. Okay, male, female, transgender, etc. And value is your male, female, etc. categories, and your value on the variable. Suppose you are female, you are a female student. So your value is your score. You are female, female is your score. Okay. This is a categorical variable. Let us take another quantitative variable. Suppose anxiety. Anxiety is a variable, anxiety level. You are 4 to 5 students are there. So all of you have different levels of anxiety, isn't it? So it is a variable. And suppose we are administering a scale on anxiety. We are administering an anxiety scale. And that scale, on that scale, you can score the possible scores range from 0 to 20, suppose. So these 0, 1, 2 up to 20 are the values. They are just numbers. Okay. And possible values, possible numbers one can get. And your score, suppose you score 7. Okay. On the when you are administered that scale, you score 7. So your value is 7. Your value on the variable is the score. Your score is 7. Okay?
No, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am,
ma'am.
we are not getting you.
You are not getting me.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you clear? What
I
is the
think she
variable?
needs some more clarification.
Okay. You know what is a variable?
Yes, ma'am.
Variable can have different values. Suppose we are studying anxiety. Okay. Anxiety can have different values. All of
Yes.
us. Okay. So anxiety is variable. Okay. And on our scale of how can we know the values? We have to measure it.
Yes.
So we are administering an anxiety scale. Okay. So on that scale, the possible score range from 0 to 20. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes, ma'am.
0, 1, 2, 3 to 20. These are values. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And suppose you score 7. You get 7 out of 20. So your value on the variable is 7.
Yes, ma'am.
So your score is 7. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So coming to research, usually in research we try to study the variable. Okay. Because when a concept is studied, we come to the construct level, and the construct is studied in terms of variables. Okay, a construct is defined, operationally defined in terms of variables. So in research, we study the relationship between variables usually. Okay, so while doing research, there are several sources of biases, but research should be, scientific research should be objective. Okay, so while doing research, we should remain objective and free from biases, but there are several sources of biases which we should be careful. of which we should be careful. There are external influences such as our cultural background. Our culture influences our behavior also. Okay, so cultural biases are there. Due to our cultural differences in cultural background, we may behave differently, but erroneously we may conclude that it is due to independent variable. I will explain you about independent variable. Then we may have observer bias, so you will study in your statistics paper in detail. But let me say you, suppose I am the observer, but I have some bias in my mind, and whatever I observe, I interpret it in terms of my own cognition, my own thinking. Okay, I interpret the object according to me. That is observer's bias. Suppose while observing or while testing your, evaluating your exam papers, I have a bias that IGNOU students are good students. So even if you have written wrong things, I interpret it, no, she has given some creative answers. So that is observer's bias. And always the observed score is the sum of true score and error. So the errors come from all these biases and also variations. Then there are expectancy bias. We expect things. Rosenthal effect you must have read. As we expect things, the things come to. We influence the result of the research. Then coming to variable, we have different types of variables. Okay, what are these types of variables? First, you know, there are independent variable, dependent variable, extraneous variable, and confounding variable. In research, we have these 4 types of variables. Okay. What is an independent variable? An independent variable is that variable which we are manipulating and its effect we are studying. So we are studying the effect of the independent variable by manipulating it. Okay? What is dependent variable? Dependent variable, we are studying the change in it in relation to the change in independent variable. Okay, so we change the independent variable and study the change in dependent variable. Then extraneous variable. Extraneous variables are several variables outside the several variables other than the independent variable, which also affect either independently affect the dependent variable or affect the dependent variable in combination with the independent variable. So extraneous variables influence the relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. Okay. In research, we have to control them. Okay. We have to control them. And confounding variable. There are several other variables which may affect the relationships, but we cannot always eliminate it. Extraneous variables, we try to eliminate it. We can try to control it. But confounding variables, we cannot always eliminate it. Let us take an example. Okay. Suppose we are studying the relationship between what? Relationship between your intelligence and academic achievement. Okay. So we are trying to find out whether with the change in intelligence level there is change in academic achievement. So here we are manipulating the intelligence level. How we are manipulating, we will discuss it later on. Okay. So intelligence is the independent variable. Dependent variable is our academic achievement. There are some variables. Suppose age. Okay. An older student or an older person has definitely higher intellectual level, isn't it? So it is age can also affect the relationship between intelligence and academic achievement, your SCS. It can also influence. So your SCS, your age, all these are extraneous variables. We while studying the relationship between intelligence and academic achievement, we are trying to, or we always are careful of controlling these extraneous variables. They are other than they are variables other than the independent variables, but they can influence the relationship. And confounding variables also influence the relationship, but they cannot be entirely eliminated or controlled. Suppose your past experience, okay, your level of motivation, all these are there. When I am going to test you, you have a certain level of motivation, you have certain past experiences. All of you have different levels of motivations. All of you have different past experiences, and they can influence the result of the study. But I cannot manipulate, I cannot control your level of motivation, I cannot control your past experience. Can I? So these are confounding variables. Always, while doing a research, the researcher wants to study the effect of independent variable on dependent variable by manipulating the independent variable and studying the change in the dependent variable with the change in independent variable. And the researcher tries to control the extraneous variable and minimize the confounding effects of the confounding variables. Then so these are variables. Let us come how we can proceed. First step in the research process is identification of the problem. We begin with a research question. I have already mentioned it. We have a problem. We have something in our mind which we become interested to know more about it. Okay. So we identify a problem, then we put it as a question, research question, which can be studied objectively. So the research question determines the direction of study. Okay. Suppose let us take the example of relationship between intelligence and academic achievement. I have a question in my mind there whether intelligent people who are more intelligent, they have a better they higher academic achievement or not. Okay. Whether highly intelligent people perform good in examination or not. So I want to study it, then intelligence, I have to put it in a research question. So I told you I have to come to construct level and then variable level. Suppose, what is intelligence? Intelligence is an abstract term. So I have to operationalize it. Suppose the scores on an intelligence scale, I operationalize it as the scores on the Raven's colored progressive matrices. Okay, I operationalize it as the scores people obtain when administered an intelligence test. So our variable becomes now the RCPM score or the RPM score. Okay. Then similarly, academic achievement, we have to bring it to the measurable form. So academic achievement is, suppose we define it as the marks obtained in the previous school examination. Okay. So it is the operation, we operationalize both the variables. Then put it in the form of a research question. So whether with the change in RCPM score, whether a change in RCPM score is associated with a change in academic change in your school marks. So our research question will be, do the people who score high on RCPM get better marks in school examination? Okay. Be more specific, do the people who score high on RCPM are different from the people or the students who get low scores on RCPM in terms of their school marks, school examination mark? Got it? Are you able to follow me? So our question is now reduced to whether the students who get higher marks in RCPM are different from the students who get lower marks in terms of their marks obtained in the school examination. Okay. This is our research question. So we have a question now which we can measure it and study it. Okay. So we now formulate the question into a measurable form, testable form. We can test it because we can measure both we can get the participants values on both the variables. So this is a research question. So the research question determines what is the role of a research question. Why should we formulate the problem into reduce the problem into a research question, formulate a research question. Why? So the research question determines the direction of study. The direction of the study depends on our research question. When we discuss more about research designs and research methods, we will be able to understand it, how it determines the direction of the study. So the main function of formulating a research problem is to decide what we want to find out. Okay, actually what we want to find out. So it is extremely important to evaluate the research problem, whether it is feasible or not. Suppose we formulate a very big, very interesting research question, research problem. But we have a very interesting research problem. But we do not have enough funds or enough time to study this. Or we may not have enough expertise and knowledge to study this. Okay. So we have to evaluate it whether it is feasible or not. Then after having a research question in our mind, in a research problem in our mind, we have to go through the review of literature. We have to undertake a review of literature. We have to go through the literature, or we have go through the research findings obtained by our predecessors. So the findings of the previous research, we have to go through it. This is known as a scientific research, includes a review of the relevant literature. So the researcher reviews the previous researches in related fields. Why it is so important? By going through the previous findings of the previous research, or by undertaking a review of the relevant literature, we ensure that the research is not a duplication of any prior research. Okay, If somebody has already answered to this particular question, then what is the necessity of doing this research again? We have found the question. Okay. So, to eliminate the chance of the duplication of what has already been done, we have to undertake the review of literature. Then review of literature also provides us guidance and suggestions for our research. So it gives an idea about the variables which have been found to be conceptually and practically important and unimportant in the related field. So by going through the findings of the previous, going through the previous research literature, we know what extraneous variables are probably or might probably be affecting our research question, our relationship between intelligence and academic achievement. So somebody has found out that age is a variable which also affects both the intelligence and the which affects intelligence. So in a class, older student have higher level of intelligence, so they are likely to be performing better in examination. Okay, they are more matured, so age is a factor. So we know that age can affect this relationship or mask this relationship. So we know that we have to control age. Okay, so review of literature gives us a direction. Then the review of literature also provides where the research gap is, what has been found and what has not been found, or what are the methodological defects are there, methodological errors are there. So we have to take care of it. Third, a review of literature helps the researcher in systematizing and expanding our growing body of knowledge. So from the review of literature, we are better able to draw conclusion regarding the variables under study. They help us in making relevant conclusions. And a review of literature also helps in redefining the variable and determining the meanings and relationships among them. So we have review of literature helps us in determining the variables, in finding the research gaps, in guiding the direction of research, and helping us in making conclusions. So from where we can get the knowledge about the previous research. There are research journals, books and abstracts, psychological abstracts are there, indexes are there, and is a very effective tool is PsycInfo for going technical literature. We can get the abstracts of the previous research. PsycInfo. So we have to make a review of literature, and with the help of a review of literature, we have to formulate a research question, good research question, which has not been investigated before, which will contribute to the understanding of our question, which are available to investigate, and which will lead to another question. Okay. So a research question, research problem, a good research problem is one which has not been investigated before, which will contribute to the understanding of our question, which are available to investigate, feasible to investigate, and which will lead to another question. So after we have a research question in our mind, then we have to formulate a hypothesis. All of you know that a hypothesis is a kind of suggested answer to the problem. Okay? It is a kind of suggested answer to the problem. We expect that this we will get it. That is the hypothesis. So if our research question is, do the students with high RCPM score differ from the students with low RCPM score in terms of their exam marks? This is the research question, and hypothesis is our suggested answer. It is in the form of a tentative statement showing a relationship between variables. We have two variables under study, RCPM score and exam marks. So our hypothesis should be in a statement form. What will it be? We have two types of hypothesis. You know, a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. So our the answer to our research question will be, first, null hypothesis is both the groups do not differ in terms of exam marks. So exam marks obtained by both the groups are not different. Okay, that is our null hypothesis. There is no difference, and alternatively we may expect that there will be a difference. Okay, so the alternative hypothesis will be both the groups are different. Okay, so we have to formulate a hypothesis. I have told you we have two answers, either null hypothesis or the alternative hypothesis. Why we are going for a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis? What is the importance of null hypothesis? We may just trying to find out the role of intelligence in an examination. So we may be expecting that both the groups will differ from each other. Then why should we take a null hypothesis? Why we are talking about the null hypothesis? You see, we are talking about a null hypothesis because we are conducting the research. Why? We have a question in our mind which we do not, the answer to which is not available. we went through we made a very good review of previous literature, but we didn't answer we didn't find the answer to this question, and this study is not a duplication of the prior study, and nobody has answered to this question. So when we do not know what will happen, so we say that there will be no difference, because we do not know. Our existing state of knowledge doesn't include any knowledge regarding the difference between the two groups. So we do not know actually there is whether there is a real difference or not. So we do not know. So our existing state of knowledge says that there is no difference. Okay, we do not know about the difference. That's why we take the null hypothesis, and always we compare the results against the null hypothesis. We always reject the null hypothesis or accept the null hypothesis. So null hypothesis is important. It is like, suppose somebody is suspected of stealing something. Police caught the person and produces the person in front of the judge. Okay, unless the police proves that the particular person is involved in theft, then the person is regarded as innocent, isn't it? Unless the police proves, unless the person is proved to be to have committed the crime, the person is regarded as, the person is considered as innocent. Like that, unless we prove that there is a significant difference, we consider that there is no difference. Null hypothesis, that's why we always take a null hypothesis. Okay. So we take a null hypothesis, and an alternative hypothesis is the statement regarding suggesting a relationship, that there will be significant difference between the two groups. Then third step in research is identifying the variables, manipulating and controlling the variables. We control the extraneous variable, we manipulate the independent variable, and all these things are done in our design. So we design, we formulate a research design, we design our research. How to manipulate the independent variable, what extraneous variables we are going to control it. So a research design is a blueprint of those procedures which are adapted by the researcher. Okay, so we go for designing the research. The main purpose of experimental design is to help the researcher in manipulating the independent variables, to provide maximum control of the extraneous variables, so that we can say with certainty that the experimental change or the change in the dependent variable is due to the only the manipulation of the experimental variable or independent variable. So the research design, we have to design our research. So a research design should also include the following: the logistical arrangements to be made, the measurement procedures, what tests we are going to use, or how to use a sampling strategy, what sample we are going to take. So the frame of analysis, how to analyze our data, and the time frame, the time period within which we have to complete our research. We cannot go for indefinite for indefinite period while doing the research. We have to conclude it within a time period. So a faulty design may derive misleading findings. So empirical investigations are primarily evaluated in the light of research design used or adopted. And while designing a research, we have to ensure that it is workable and manageable. We can do it. It is practical. Then after designing the test, we have to after designing the research, we have to go for measurement devices. If the devices are already available, which the instruments we are going to use. If the appropriate tools are not available, we have to develop them. We have to develop scales to measure our variable. Then in the next step comes the sample selection and data collection. Sample selection. What is a sample and what is a population? What is a population? A population consists of all the elements with a defined characteristics in which we are interested. Okay. So suppose we are interested in studying the relationship between our intelligence and academic achievement of class 4 children. Okay. So all the elements having the characteristics, that is all the class 4 students, all those students who are studying in class 4 constitute the population. Okay. So all the elements having the defined characteristics of which we are interested constitute the population, and a subset of our population is a sample. So we have to decide our sample, how to draw our sample. There are different types of techniques of sampling. We will discuss it. So which type of sample and where to select our sample, we have to decide it. Then we have to collect the data from our sample, administer the tests, and collect the information from our sample. In the next step comes the data analysis and interpretation. After making observation or after collecting the data, it is analyzed. Data are analyzed with the help of various quantitative and qualitative techniques. We may have a quantitative research, we may have a qualitative research. For quantitative research, we have several statistical techniques. For qualitative research also there are strategies for data analysis. So depending on our research paradigm, depending on our research design, we have to adopt the proper statistical technique or data analysis technique, and we have to analyze the data and interpret the data. After analyzing the data, we have to draw conclusions. Whether there is a relationship between intelligence and academic achievement. The intellectual intelligence is related to academic achievement, or intelligence influences academic achievement. We conclude. Then there doesn't, we think that the research is complete. Is it complete now? After making a conclusion, what should we do?
Preparation of report and publications.
Preparation of report. So we have to prepare the report. Why? And publish it. Why?
We have to publish the report in order to generalize our findings so that the population will get affected by it. I mean, the population will be aware about it.
Know about our research. So it will contribute to the body of knowledge. Okay. So I have to prepare the report in a manner so that others can understand it, what I have done and what I am going to say, they can understand it. So we have a prescribed format of preparing the report, and we have to publish it in scientific journals so that the work is available for wider dissemination. More number of people will know about the research findings. So it will also contribute to their understanding of the relationship between both the variables. Others will know about it and they may verify it, they may replicate it. Okay, so it will lead to further research. So these are steps in research. Where I told you that we follow logical principles. We progress in a logical manner. We follow both deductive strategy as well as inductive strategy. How? While formulating the hypothesis, from the theory, from the knowledge of theory, theory is a generalized statement, we formulate the analysis, formulate the hypothesis. Hypotheses are derived from theory. So hypotheses are also generalized statement, we can say. They are deducted, deduced. They are deduced from theory. So we formulate theory on following the method of deduction and we study conduct the study. So we proceed in a deductive manner from generalized statement to our specific statement, specific study. So we progress in a deductive manner. Okay, so we follow the process of deduction. Again, after we are analyzing, after we have analyzed our results, we are concluding. Then again, from the results of our specific study, we are making some generalized statement when we make conclusions. Okay, so I conducted a study in a particular area, say Bhubaneswar, of class 4 students, with class 4 students. It is very specific study and found out a significant relationship between intelligence and academic achievement. Okay, so this is the findings or observations from a very specific or limited number of subjects. Okay, this is true to my specific case. But while making conclusion, what am I concluding? I am making a conclusion that intelligence influences academic achievement, or intelligence and academic achievement are related. So I again making a generalized statement. So I again from specific case to moving to generalized statement. Okay, so I am moving or following the method of induction. Clear? Clear? Could you follow
Yes,
me?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I got you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hi Anjani. Welcome to the group.
Ma'am.
Welcome to the group.
Thank you, ma'am.
Then, actually, what is the goal of our research design? We design a research to obtain information relevant to the purpose of the study. I told you we have to design the research. Research design helps us in obtaining information relevant to the purpose of the study. We had a purpose in our mind, and with that purpose we progressed and we formulated the research design. So it ensures that we are not going away from our purpose, okay, original purpose. And research design also helps us to collect the information with maximal reliability and validity. To maximize the reliability and validity of our research, the design is helpful. Coming to reliability and validity, you all know what is reliability. While teaching you personality, I just mentioned what is reliability and validity. Suppose reliability, why the question of reliability comes? Suppose in a testing context, we develop a test or we measure a person on some trade. The idea behind reliability is that any significant result must be repeatable. Suppose I am administering a test of anxiety or a test of intelligence. I use obtain a particular score. I assume that when we again test you with that particular test, you will obtain the same score. Okay, same result we will be obtained. Similarly, in the context of research, it should also be, the findings should also be consistent. If today I conducted the research and found a particular, my result is that I got a significant relationship. After 6 months, I conduct a different study on the same problem. If the research is reliable, findings are reliable, then the same findings must be obtained. Okay, so how can we ensure it? By ensuring that all the methods are correctly followed and the measurement instruments are reliable, we can get the same result. So, reliability is the repeatability of measurement. If a person score on the same test given twice is similar, a instrument is reliable. Mind it. You are not measuring the reliability. You are measuring the variable. Okay, you are measuring the intelligence. You are measuring the anxiety. You are measuring the extra person. You are measuring the variable, but you are estimating the reliability. So you are not measuring the reliability. So reliability refers to the consistency of scores obtained by the individual on different occasions or with different sets of equivalent items. We have several methods of finding out the reliability. First method is external consistency procedure, and second method of reliability is internal consistency procedures. So test reliability, I have told you that the obtained score on a test is true score plus error. Okay, so test reliability indicates, we can say, the extent to which individual differences in test scores are attributable to true differences in the characteristics under consideration or the variable we are measuring, and the extent to which it is attributable to chance errors. So, if the differences in test scores among individuals is attributable to the differences in the true score, then the test is reliable. If the differences among the individuals is attributable to the errors, then the test is having low reliability. Okay. I told you that reliability is the consistency between two independent sets of scores when the test is administered on different occasions. That means, suppose we administer the test twice with a say, time gap of 1 month. Okay, so we have two sets of scores. First, scores on first obtained on first administration and scores obtained from second administration. Okay, so we have two sets of scores, or we may also administer an equivalent form of the test on the second occasion. Okay, we may administer the same test or an equivalent form of the test. So we have two sets of scores. If there is consistency or there is agreement, then it is, we say that the test is reliable. So agreement means it is expressed in terms of correlation coefficient. Okay, so we find out the correlation coefficient between the two sets of scores, and the correlation coefficient, we express the reliability of the test in terms of that correlation coefficient. Okay, actually correlation coefficient is, you do not have to memorize the difficult formula, just understand it. It is the mean of the product of the standard scores of the individual on both the variables. Okay, it is the mean of the product of standard scores obtained on both the variables. You have a set of scores from your first administration, first testing, convert each score to standard score. For finding out the Z score, it is the standard score means Z score, you know. Formula for finding out the Z score is score minus mean divided by standard deviation. So find out the Z scores of each score obtained from the first administration. Then find out the Z score, calculate the Z scores of each score obtained from the second administration. Multiply the corresponding Z scores, then find out the mean of this product of it is, that means sum Zx Zy divided by n, that is your correlation coefficient, and all other formulas are derived from this. Okay, so we have to, when we have two sets of scores from different administrations, either from the either administering the same test on two occasions or administering two equivalent forms of the test on two different occasions. That is, it is known as external consistency procedure. Okay. When we administer the same test on two different occasions, it is known as test retest reliability. So the reliability coefficient in this case would be the correlation between the score obtained by the same person on two administrations of the test. Here, test retest reliability, in case of test retest reliability, the error variance corresponds to random fluctuations of performance from one session to the other. That is temporal stability. The time gap between the measures is of critical value, because shorter the gap, higher the correlation. So when the time gap is shorter, we have higher reliability. Here, limitations of this approach is that we are administering the same test. So there is, we may memorize some of the items of the test. So in the second administration, we may do better. Okay. We may have a practice effect. So memory effect and practice effect may affect our reliability. That is correlation coefficient. Magnitude correlation coefficient may be low or may decrease due to this memory effect or practice effect. And there is another problem with this method is that participants may drop out. We are going for two administrations. Some participants may not come for second administration, so there may be dropout. Another method of external consistency method is parallel forms of reliability. So in parallel forms reliability, we are administering two equivalent forms of test to same group of subjects. Parallel forms of reliability what is the problem? We have, we may face a difficulty in actually developing two equivalent forms of tests. Equivalent forms of tests or parallel forms of tests means both the tests should be equivalent in terms of difficulty level and the area, content area of the items which the test is measuring, the content area the test is covering. So practically it is very difficult. And again, the same people may not be available on the second occasion. So psychologists, they thought of administering the test to the group of individuals only once, because on second occasion many people may not come again. So we administer the test once, then let them go, we find out the relativity. So from this idea came the internal consistency procedure. So the idea behind internal consistency procedure is that items measuring same phenomena should produce similar results. Okay. Suppose I um, I have a test to measure anxiety. If item number 1 of my test is measuring anxiety and item number 2 of my test is also measuring anxiety, then my response to item 1 should not differ from my response from item number 2, response to item number 2. Got it? If both the items are measuring the same thing and I am the person, I should respond in a similar way to both the items. That is the idea behind internal consistency procedures. So there is the psychologist thought of administering the test once to the to a group of individuals, then divide the test into two halves. Okay, that is known as split half reliability. Then comes whether to divide the test randomly, test items randomly into two halves. When the items of the test are arranged in terms of increasing difficulty level, then random division is not helpful. So in that case, psychologists think of odd and even division. Odd numbers are to odd numbered items make one half, and the even numbered items make the other half. But with speed test, this is also not very helpful. And another problem with that split half approach is that actually we are dividing the same test into two halves. That means we are finding out the correlation between the scores of two shorter tests, isn't it? We are dividing the test means we are making it shorter. There are two shorter tests. So each test has one half number of items. Okay. If the original test had 50 items, now each half has half the number of items in the original test. So the test becomes shorter. So when the test is shorter, the reliability becomes low. And to take care of this, Spearman, there is a formula which make corrections for this correction, allowing us to estimate the reliability for the full length scale. This is known as Spearman-Brown's formula.
Ma'am, is there any parametric statistics formula for in order to calculate the reliability?
Yes, this is product movement correlation coefficient. We are finding out product movement correlation coefficient. Pearson's product movement correlation is a parametric statistics.
Ma'am, like in non-parametric statistics, we use Cronbach's alpha for testing the reliability. But is there any parametric test?
Parametric test, when we are going for test reliability or split half reliability, we are going for Pearson product movement correlation.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is parameter based on parametric statistics. And we have Kudor-Richardson estimate of reliability. When we have dichotomous dichotomous items means either we score 1 or 2 or score 0 or 1, right or wrong. This type of test we have Kudor-Richardson formula 20 to find out the reliability, and Cronbach's alpha is for items which are not dichotomous. Okay, suppose we have a test, we have 5 alternatives: so strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. For this we have Cronbach's alpha or alpha coefficient. So we have the different types of reliability, then come to validity. Validity is, measure the validity.
Validity is ma'am.
Yes.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
So, ma'am, we can say a test as a valid when the test measure what it intends to measure.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. So, whether the test measure what it intends to measure, that is validity. We have different types of validity. First, content validity. Content validity is a non-statistical type of validity. It tells us whether the test represents the entire range of possible items the test should cover. Suppose it is more used in case of examination of subject area. Suppose I am going to test your knowledge in learning. Suppose whether my test covers all the subjects you have taught in learning paper. Okay, that is content validity. That is, it is how do you ensure the content validity? We have experts, we take judges who rate the relevance of the items and they give their opinions regarding the content validity of the relevance of the items. Items are rated as highly relevant if both the judges, it is better to take the opinions of more than one judges, because one judge may be biased. So when both the judges agree regarding the relevance of an item, it is said to be highly valid. No statistical procedure is here used. Second type of validity is criterion related validity. Criterion related validity means it is based on the idea that a valid test should relate closely to other measures of the same theoretical concept. It is of two types, concurrent validity and predictive validity. Suppose I have a test which is meant to diagnose a particular clinical disorder. Okay. Suppose my test is meant to diagnose schizophrenic patient. If my test is valid, then it should correctly diagnose the schizophrenic patients. That means what we know that these schizophrenic patients should behave like this, their symptoms should be as this, they show such and such symptoms. And their actual symptoms and their test results should correlate with each other. Okay? Those who are high on this test should show more number of symptoms. Those who are low on the test, score low on the test, they should not show any of the symptoms. That is concurrent validity. Concurrent validity reflects the degree to which the test scores estimate the individual's present status with regards to criterion. Suppose I have a test of anxiety. The person who is scoring high on anxiety should actually at behavioral level show anxiety. Okay. The second type of criterion related validity is predictive validity. Predictive validity occurs when criterion measures are obtained at a time after the test. So here the criterion is criterion measures are obtained after a time period. Suppose I am giving an aptitude test, to a musical aptitude test to a person. A person has musical aptitude means after the child is given proper training, he will show greater musical ability. So, aptitude tests are useful in identifying who will be more likely to succeed or fail in a particular subject. We have entrance examinations. We select subjects on the basis of their performance on the entrance test. We go for entrance tests with the assumption that those who are scoring high on entrance examinations will be successful in completing the course. They will not fail. So if you score high on our entrance test to get admission into PG psychology, then it is assumed that you will be successful. So you will successfully complete the PG psychology course and you will be a successful psychologist. That is predictive validity. So the validity, the criterion is here is your future performance. Okay. So in criterion related validity, your test scores are correlated with external criterion, external criterions, criteria. If the criteria, if the criterion measurement is available at the same time, it is concurrent validity. If the criterion is your future performance, is your future behavior, it is predictive validity. Okay. Then come to construct validity. Third type of validity, it is construct validity. I told you, when we are trying to study a concept, we come to the construct level, theoretical construct. So construct validity is the property of a test that the measurement actually measures the construct they are designed to measure. So the test should actually measure whatever theoretical construct is what theory says actually. Suppose we are measuring the leadership ability of a person. So the test should measure the leadership ability. It should not actually test extraversion. So it should not be theoretically, suppose leadership is related to your decision making style. Suppose if our test is valid, leadership ability test is valid, then the test scores should also be correlated, so should also have significant correlation with the scores obtained from the test for decision making. Okay, if both the constructs are correlated according to the theory, then both the constructs should be correlated. So if we have two sets of scores, one with leadership ability and the other set of score is our decision making ability, both the variables should correlate with each other. Okay. So this is convergent validity. And if the theory says that leadership ability is not related to your ability, musical ability, say, okay, theory of leadership says that leadership is not related to your musical ability. Okay, then our leadership ability test should not, this course should not correlate with the musical ability of the person. Okay. So this test should correlate with which it is theoretically predicted to correlate with, and it should not correlate with that that is theoretically suggested as irrelevant. Okay. So the test should not measure what it should not measure, that is discriminant validity and convergent validity. The test should measure what it should measure. Got it?
Yes,
Got
ma'am.
it? Okay. Then the final type of validity is face validity. Face validity is the test what appears to measure superficially. So it is also important to capture the interest of the test taker. If the face validity, the test doesn't have face validity, it may not be interesting to the test taker. In the context of research, we have two types of validity. Okay, internal validity and external validity. Internal validity, what we are finding doing in research. We are finding out, suppose, a causal relationship between two variables, between the dependent variable and independent variable. Internal validity says us or estimates the degree to which inferences about causal relationships drawn are based on measures employed and research designs. That means whether the findings or whether the change in dependent variable is actually due to the change in independent variable. That is internal validity. The change in dependent variable is actually caused by the change in independent variable. They say that is internal validity. So, in highly controlled conditions, the research findings are having high internal validity. So, if we conduct a highly controlled study, we can increase the internal validity of the study. There is another type of validity relating to the research, that is external validity. So external validity concerns whether results of the research can be generalized to another situation, different subjects, or different settings or times. Okay. There are different threats to internal validity as well as external validity. But in summary, we say that in highly controlled experiments, we have higher internal validity. Okay, so we can with certainty conclude that the change in dependent variable is caused by the change in independent variable. So, by increasing control, we can increase the internal validity. On the other hand, external validity means the degree to which it can be generalized. In highly controlled study, the findings of the highly controlled studies cannot be generalized to other settings, to real life situations. So, highly controlled studies have low external validity. Okay, so by trying to increase the internal validity, we are actually decreasing the external validity. So which one is more important, internal validity or external validity? What we should do? Whether we should conduct a highly controlled study or to increase internal validity, or our study should not all the external should not have all the external variables, extraneous variables and confounding variables controlled, so that if whether we should try to increase the external validity, whether we should try to internal validity, or we should try to control extraneous validity, external validity, sorry, which is more important, internal validity or external validity. So what should we do? We
I
should
think internal.
yes, yes.
Ma'am, I think internal validity is more important.
If we cannot generalize the findings, then what is the use of this research? We cannot apply the findings, we can to another situation.
Ma'am, we should
The
try to
very
create a balance.
yes, we should compromise between the two. We should try to make a balance. Some amount of control should be there, and some generalizability should also be there. Okay. So I think today we should end here. Do you have any doubt?
No,
Do
ma'am.
you have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So let us
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
have a good day. See you tomorrow.
Okay, ma'am.